Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today's story is one that will test your patience, your emotions, and even your faith in the people we trust the most. This case is not just confusing, it is haunting. It is the kind of case that crawls under your skin and refuses to leave. And by the time we get to the end of it, you might find yourself questioning everything you believe about justice, about truth, and about how far powerful people can go to hide what they don't want the world to see. Because what happened to this young woman is not just tragic, it is deeply suspicious, layered with unanswered questions, missing evidence, and a series of events that do not make sense no matter how many times you look at them. This is the story of a woman loved deeply by her family, adored by her friends, and respected by everyone who ever truly knew her. Yet somehow, she ended up dead in circumstances so bizarre, so unbelievable, that even today her parents are fighting for answers that they still have not received. Her name was Emily Hart. She was born on February the 3rd, 1996, in Vermont. From the very beginning, she was the miracle of her parents, David and Laura Hart. Emily was their only child, their entire world, and they raised her with so much love, warmth, and support that everyone around her felt it whenever she was in the room. She was incredibly smart, emotional, empathetic, and deeply aware of the world around her. She loved music, played piano beautifully, loved hiking, the ocean, animals, and learning new things. She graduated high school with honors and eventually went on to study environmental science. Emily wasn't just talented, she was strong, driven, and incredibly careful. She was the kind of person who thought through every decision she made. Her parents used to say she had an old soul. She cared about people, she loved deeply, and she had dreams, big dreams. While she was studying and working, she eventually met someone who would change everything. His name was Daniel Cole. He was smart, charming, funny in a quiet way, and most importantly, he loved Emily in a way everyone could see. They took things slow at first, just talking, learning each other, testing trust, understanding values. They fell in love gradually, not dramatically, but deeply. And soon, their families began to see the same thing. Emily glowed around him. Daniel seemed gentler, steadier with her by his side. Eventually, Emily moved in with him, and their life together was peaceful and full of plans. Daniel had dreams as well. He wanted to join the Marines and serve. It was something that mattered to him deeply, and Emily, being the supportive partner she was, stood by him, trusted him, encouraged him, and together they planned their future step by step. She was accepted into a prestigious environmental law program and decided she would wait for him to finish his training so they could properly start their life together. When Daniel finally went to training, it was hard on both of them. Communication was limited, time was scarce, but their love didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger. They wrote letters constantly. Emily kept every letter like it was a treasure. She woke up each morning thinking about him and went to sleep missing him. When he finally finished training, they spoke again, properly, freely, with laughter and tear and relief. And one day, just like that, he proposed. Emily said yes. Her parents were thrilled, her friends were thrilled. Life suddenly looked bright, full of promise, full of hope. But what Emily did not know, what no one around her could have imagined, was that the happiness she was living was about to collide with something dark, something hidden, something dangerous. 2 weeks after their engagement, Daniel received a short liberty break, and Emily decided she was going to travel to see him. It wasn't an easy trip. Multiple transports, hours of travel, exhaustion, but she did not care. She just wanted to see the man she loved. She booked a hotel because Daniel was restricted to base the night she arrived, and they planned to meet early the next morning. Simple plan, normal, safe. At least that's what everyone believed. But from the moment Emily stepped into that hotel room, something changed. Her parents spoke to her. She sounded tired but excited. She wanted to rest, shower, watch something, sleep peacefully. She messaged a few friends. She messaged Daniel. Everything seemed fine. Then hours passed. Morning came. But Emily did not show up where she was supposed to be. She did not answer calls. She did not text anyone. And that was not like her, not even slightly. What followed was a nightmare. Authorities claimed something happened late that night, involving drinking, a drive, and a sudden tragedy. They said it was an accident. They said it was simple. They said it was closed. But Emily's parents immediately felt something was wrong. Things didn't match. Timelines didn't make sense. Reports were vague, incomplete, contradictory. Evidence was missing. People changed their statements. And in every direction the parents turned, they found resistance instead of help, silence instead of truth. Emily's father described the first moment he realized this wasn't just an accident. It was the tone in the voice of the officer who called. Cold, distant, rushed. Like Emily wasn't a real human being, just a file number. Like they wanted it closed quickly. Like they didn't want questions. But Emily's parents had questions. They wanted every detail. They demanded transparency. They wanted to know exactly what happened to their daughter, why she ended up where she did, why things were hidden from them, why they were treated like outsiders in their own child's death. They were told a story, but that story kept changing. One moment it was said Emily was happy and safe. The next they claimed she was emotional. One moment she was supposedly sober. The next moment they said there was alcohol involved, but there were no clear explanations of where it came from, who provided it, who was there, and why she ended up alone in the most dangerous possible situation. They were told she made decisions that absolutely did not match the careful, responsible woman everyone knew. They were told to believe she acted completely out of character, and her parents refused to accept that. Witness names were blurred. Conversations disappeared. Important calls were not documented properly. Evidence that should have existed simply did not. And every time her parents pushed for answers, they ran into a wall. And slowly, painfully, they began to realize something truly terrifying. This was not incompetence. This felt like control, like something or someone didn't want the truth exposed. Because what if Emily didn't end up where she was by accident? What if she trusted the wrong people at the wrong moment? What if someone powerful didn't want accountability? What if there was more to this than anyone has admitted? What if the truth is far darker than an accident? Her parents are still fighting. They are still begging for transparency. They are still demanding honesty. They want her story heard. They want the world to know Emily did not deserve what happened. They want justice, and they deserve it. In Part 2, we will go much deeper into the suspicious timeline of events, the contradictions in official reports, the shocking behavior of certain individuals involved, the disturbing unanswered questions, and the emotional fight her family is still in today. Because once you hear everything, I promise you, you will question everything too. When the news finally reached Emily's parents, time seemed to stop. Laura remembers the way the room felt like it was collapsing in on her, how the sounds around her vanished, how the world suddenly went silent, except for the echo of those words. Your daughter is gone. It did not feel real. it did not sound human. It sounded clinical, robotic, like a programmed voice delivering a result instead of a life being taken away. David described his heart, feeling like it physically broke, but even in their grief, something inside them refused to accept the version of events they were being fed. According to the official narrative, sometime late that night, Emily was supposedly convinced to leave her hotel room, despite being exhausted, despite planning for the next morning, despite everything known about her character. They claimed she joined two individuals for a ride. They claimed alcohol was somehow involved. They claimed she ended up in a moving vehicle with people she barely knew. They said she was there willingly. Then they claimed there was a sudden loss of control, a crash, a tragedy. And just like that, they said it was over. But almost immediately, the questions began. Questions that no one in authority seemed eager to answer. Why would Emily, a woman known for being cautious, thoughtful, and careful about every decision she made, suddenly abandon her plans, go out late at night with near strangers, and put herself into a risky situation mere hours before seeing the man she loved? Why were details unclear? Why were statements delayed? Why did everything sound less like truth and more like a script someone needed everyone to believe? Her parents traveled to identify their daughter. No parent should ever have to see what they saw. They described walking into a space that felt freezing cold and unreal. Laura remembers looking at Emily and thinking she still looked gentle, still looked like their little girl, but everything around her felt wrong. And from that moment forward, they made a silent promise to their daughter. They would not let her become a case file. They would not let her story be buried. They would not accept convenience over truth. They began asking for reports. They requested incident documents, photographs, toxicology, witness interviews, call logs, any scrap of information that could help them understand what truly happened in those final hours. What they received instead was delay after delay, inconsistencies, redactions, vague explanations, and a constant sense that the people who were supposed to help them were more interested in protecting themselves than uncovering reality. Witness statements seemed rehearsed. Timelines did not align. Stories changed. There were claims Emily said certain things, but no proof of those conversations existing in messages or calls. Phone data was incomplete. Surveillance that should have existed suddenly did not. Key conversations were not documented. Important questions were brushed aside as irrelevant. One of the most disturbing elements was the behavior of those last seen with Emily. In situations involving genuine tragedy, there is usually shock, remorse, grief, empathy, and a willingness to cooperate fully. But here there was distance, there was coldness, there was a tone of inconvenience rather than devastation. There were jokes made in poor taste. There were inconsistencies in what they said and what they supposedly did. There were contradictions about alcohol, about conversations, about emotional states, about how things unfolded. There were gaps where there should have been clarity. And through all of it, Emily's family kept getting told variations of the same dismissive line. It was an accident. Move on. But they could not move on, because too much did not add up. Experts privately reviewing information found issues as well. Questions about speed, road conditions, reaction times, injuries, and positions raised even darker possibilities. Was someone else responsible for the vehicle at certain moments? Were actions taken after the incident that were never fully acknowledged? Were decisions made to minimize legal consequences? Were efforts made to keep certain institutions from embarrassment rather than uncover truth? As her parents dug deeper, they discovered an even more unsettling reality. Every time they sought transparency from certain departments, they encountered defensiveness. Instead of compassion, they found dismissal. Instead of help, they found obstruction. Instead of justice, they found silence. They began to feel like outsiders trespassing into something powerful, something protected, something that did not want to be questioned. Emily's father described waking up every morning feeling like he was walking into battle. Stacks of paperwork, unanswered messages, calls that were never returned, promises made and never kept. There were nights where he sat staring at letters from officials, trying to read between the lines, trying to understand why a simple desire for truth was treated like a threat. Laura, meanwhile, struggled with the weight of grief and warrior strength at the same time. She carried her daughter in every breath, every movement, every moment, while forcing herself to stand upright against a system that did not want to listen. They started speaking publicly. They shared Emily's story. They shared their truth. And when people heard, when they truly listened, they too began to question. Because once you see the cracks, you cannot unsee them. Once you recognize the silence, you understand its meaning. Once you look at the unexplained details, it is impossible to just accept the simplest explanation. Emily was not reckless. Emily was not irresponsible. Emily did not simply walk blindly into chaos. Something else happened. Something layered. Something hidden beneath convenience. Whether it was negligence, coercion, pressure, or something far more deliberate, it remains unanswered because the truth has never been fully allowed to surface. Her parents continue to fight today, not out of obsession, but out of love. They want dignity for their daughter. They want accountability where accountability is due. They want every person involved, every agency connected, every decision-maker who chose silence over clarity to understand that Emily mattered. Her life mattered. Her future mattered. The dreams she worked for mattered, and the world lost someone extraordinary. And there is something deeply human in that, something deeply noble, because when institutions fail, when justice stumbles, when truth becomes uncomfortable, the burden of protection falls on love. And the love of parents for their child is stronger than fear, stronger than intimidation, stronger than layers of bureaucracy designed to exhaust them into submission. Emily's voice may have been taken, but her story is not gone. Her parents speak for her now. Their fight is a reminder that behind every so-called accident report is a real human being. Behind every redacted line is a heartbeat that once existed. Behind every unanswered question is a family living in permanent emotional winter, waiting for warmth that only truth can bring. And that is what makes this case so painful and so haunting. Not just the tragedy itself, but the chilling feeling that somewhere out there answers exist. Somewhere out there truth is known. Somewhere out there people understand exactly what really happened and have chosen silence. And silence, in cases like this, is not neutrality. Silence is participation. Silence is protection of convenience over humanity. Emily deserved her future. She deserved her wedding. She deserved her law career. She deserved quiet mornings, laughter-filled evenings, family years ahead, life, joy, and everything that was taken from her. And even though the system may prefer things stay quiet, her story refuses to fade. Because as long as her parents breathe, as long as people continue to listen, as long as truth still matters in this world, Emily Hart will not be forgotten. Her life will not be reduced to a line in a report. Her voice, through those who love her, will continue to echo. And one day, hopefully, finally, the truth that has been fought so hard to bury will rise. Until then, her parents continue forward, holding grief in one hand and determination in the other, walking a path no parent should ever have to walk, driven by the simple and powerful belief that their daughter deserves honesty. She deserves justice. And the world deserves to know what really happened the night Emily Hart's future was taken. If you want any changes in tone, length, emotional depth, or want a Hindi narration version or a more documentary YouTube script style, just tell me, and I will tailor it exactly for your channel. Time has a strange way of moving when grief is involved. For some people, it rushes. For others, it freezes. For Emily's parents, it became both, a constant swing between days that disappeared in legal paperwork and nights that felt endless. Seasons changed, holidays passed, birthdays came and went, and each year they were forced to live with a chair forever empty, a laugh that would never be heard again, and a future shattered far too early. But what never changed was their resolve. Their determination to keep pushing became the only thing that gave shape to time. Every unanswered email became fuel. Every refusal became motivation. Every moment of resistance from authorities strengthened their commitment to keep fighting. They began collecting everything, every document, every report, every tiny scrap of communication related to Emily's final hours. Their home slowly filled with boxes and files and binders, each one carrying pieces of a truth that remained just out of reach. And with every page they read, they discovered another inconsistency. Little details at first, dates that did not align, statements that were slightly altered, key timestamps missing, pages where important sections were conveniently blurred or blacked out, and then bigger details, physical evidence that should have existed but never appeared, people involved who were not properly questioned, internal investigations that seemed more interested in clearing reputations than exposing what really happened. The more they dug, the clearer one thing became. It wasn't only about what was said, it was about what was never said. Whole conversations erased, emotional reactions that did not match the gravity of the situation. A lack of human empathy, coldness where compassion should have been. And the deeper they went, the more they began to notice a pattern. It wasn't just one mistake. It wasn't just oversight. It was layers, decisions stacked on top of each other, moments where people could have chosen transparency, but instead chose silence. And silence, repeated enough times, becomes its own kind of statement. Friends of Emily's struggled too. For them, the world had lost someone gentle and irreplaceable. They remembered her laughter, her warmth, the way she listened when someone was hurting, the way she reached out instinctively whenever she sensed pain in others. They remembered how grounded she was, how careful, how deeply responsible. None of them could accept the explanation that she had just impulsively thrown all of that away in one reckless decision. That story did not belong to her. It did not match her character. And that alone spoke volumes. Meanwhile, the people who were last with her continued to live their lives. Some tried to present themselves as unaffected. Some avoided talking. Some showed indifference. And there lies something chilling. Because in true tragedy, there is usually visible pain in everyone involved. But here, there were smiles too soon, casual conversations, energy that did not reflect remorse. And for Emily's parents, every moment of that cold indifference cut deeper than any report ever could. As years passed, their journey transformed from private grief to a public battle. They spoke to journalists, investigators, advocates, anyone who would listen. They told Emily's story again and again, not because they wanted attention, but because the only way to fight silence is with sound. And slowly, people began to hear. Ordinary people, listeners, viewers, citizens. They looked at the inconsistencies themselves and felt that same unease. They recognized the discomfort of a case that felt suffocated by convenience. More voices began to say what Emily's parents had always known deep down. Something is wrong here. The pressure brought new moments of clarity, but also new frustrations. Some officials became even more defensive. Some doubled down on the accidental narrative. Some tried to dismiss the family as emotional, as unwilling to accept the truth. But this wasn't about comfort. It wasn't about denial. It was about facts that did not align. It was about science, logic, timing, documented behavior, credible witnesses, and undeniable contradictions. It was about the undeniable truth that reality cannot coexist with fabrication forever. Eventually, the mask always cracks. In between their fight for truth, Emily's parents had to live with the emotional weight of grief that never softened. There were days where Laura would wake up and expect to hear Emily's voice, only to be hit again with the cruel reminder that she was gone. David found himself instinctively checking his phone for messages that would never come. Her childhood room became a space frozen in time. Her belongings carried her presence so strongly that even dust felt like an intrusion. And yet they refused to let grief swallow them because their daughter deserved more than silence. Their pain became purpose. Their heartbreak became their weapon. There were moments when it all felt too heavy, moments when exhaustion pressed hard on their shoulders, moments where it seemed easier to stop fighting. But then they would remember Emily's smile, her determination, her intelligence, her belief in justice, her strength. They would remember that she spent her life trying to help, trying to be a voice of compassion and rightness in the world. And that memory forced them to continue. Stopping would mean abandoning her, and they could never do that. This case eventually became more than just a single tragedy. It became a mirror reflecting something uncomfortable about power, about accountability, about institutions that sometimes protect themselves instead of the truth. And this is why Emily's story matters. Because for every unanswered question in her case, there are other families out there facing similar battles. Families told to accept tidy explanations. Families handed clean narratives over messy realities. Families told not to ask too many questions. Her story represents them as well. Sometimes justice is not a courtroom verdict. Sometimes justice is unrelenting truth. Sometimes justice is refusing to allow a story to disappear simply because it is inconvenient. And as long as Emily's parents continue their fight, justice remains alive. Truth remains possible. Accountability remains within reach. There is a heartbreaking strength in knowing that your child will never get her future, but choosing to fight for her anyway, choosing to protect her memory, choosing to guard her dignity when others reduced her to paperwork, choosing to ensure that the world never forgets that behind every headline or official statement there is a real human being who laughed, loved, dreamed, struggled, and mattered. Emily mattered. She still matters. And while those responsible for hiding answers may believe time will erase questions, they underestimate love. They underestimate a parent's strength. They underestimate a community that recognizes injustice when it hears it. Time does not bury truth. It exposes it. Slowly, relentlessly, inevitably. So the story continues, not in the form of grief alone, but as a call to awareness. A reminder that we must question when things do not feel right. A reminder that we cannot blindly accept closure when closure is built on uncertainty. A reminder that every life lost deserves clarity. Every family deserves truth, and every institution owes honesty to the people it serves. Emily's legacy is no longer just her life. It is her parents' courage, their unbreakable love, their refusal to be silent, their insistence that truth still matters. And it is through them that Emily breathes still. In every conversation, in every investigation, in every listener who hears her story and refuses to forget. Justice is not always swift. Sometimes it is a journey that spans years. But as long as her name is spoken, as long as people continue to stand with her family, as long as truth remains a force that people still believe in, Emily Hart's story will not close the way some wanted it to. It will end only when the truth is fully revealed. And until that day comes, her parents will keep moving forward, step by painful step, carrying grief and strength side by side, fueled by love that no silence can ever